right now, this weekend, right down the road, 5, 6 miles away from me, the Right to Life are protesting on the National Mall. And I will say that their their messaging hits a chord to people, even though it seems like they're lying. Like during the 2016 presidential debate, former President Trump said that they are literally ripping out babies the day before the baby is due. One, is that even close to true?
It's not.
What it, what are some of the later term abortions? Like at what point is it too late to have
So
an
it's very
abortion?
state specific, but many times, even the more advanced states will have it be somewhere in the mid 20s. So 25, 26, 27, 28. Some people's states stop weeks. Yes,
Weeks.
sorry. Weeks of the
Weeks
pregnancy.
of the
Some
pregnancy.
people
Okay.
will stop at viability, which is around that same time. And I cannot stress enough that nobody's doing an abortion at 39 weeks. That's not happening. What might happen is if this so what is that happening for? What are these later term, I put that in quotations, abortions happening for? It's when you had a normal pregnancy up until 28 weeks, and then you were getting a scan and they notice your baby had a stroke. Babies can have strokes. Babies can have strokes.
Wow.
And
I
you
did not
notice
know
that, or the doctor, the ultrasonographer notices that, and they, hold your hand and say, "I'm so sorry, but your baby's essentially brain dead in utero." So that is what the quote unquote late term abortions are happening for. And it's not happening at 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40 weeks. That is not happening. And oftentimes, you know, there's the procedural surgical abortions, but there's also induction abortions where you just deliver the fetus. So I've known people who they know that their pregnancy has a lethal fetal anomaly. So at 20 weeks, I've had friends that just deliver their babies and just don't, there's no care that you can provide to a 20-weeker. That's a not viable pregnancy. But that is technically an abortion. But to me, that isn't anything awful or bad. To me, that is love. Because rather than have a baby that is going to die a very painful death, you just deliver them before they'll never take a breath, essentially. And that is love. That is love. I don't know.
That is love. What do you think are the most important factors that influence people's views on abortion? And what do you think the biggest misconceptions about abortion are? Obviously, we just talked about one, and it's not just the former president that I heard that from. I've literally heard people in my everyday life, sort of friendish zone, like I know them and I converse, acquaintances that have said some of those similar talking points, and I'm just like, well, that's not true. So, one, what are some other views that people have about abortion that just aren't true? And how do we change the messaging? How do we counteract the messaging from, I'm not saying that all the people that are out in that march that's going on right now for the right to life is spitting wrong facts. But how do we how do we reach those people and tell them the truth about abortion?
I think it's just education. I mean, not to say that these people are uneducated. I know very, very educated people that have that view of abortion. But I think it's just actually sitting down and say, that's not what abortion is. Here is what abortion is. And here are some examples of what abortion is. You got pregnant from your boyfriend who you love very much, and then your boyfriend went on a drunken bender and beats the shit out of you. Can I say that? Beats the crap out of you. And you want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be on YouTube, but I can take it
now,
out. That's okay.
And now you're
You
like,
can say shit.
oh, shenanigans. This is not a person I want to be with anymore. I do not want to have any ties to this person anymore. That is an abortion. Mm-hmm. You and your husband have been trying for 7 years. You're 43 years old. You finally get pregnant. You're so excited to be pregnant. And then you do genetic testing because you're advanced maternal age at 43 years old, and you find out that your baby is basically going to be a vegetable because of a genetic abnormality that they have. That is an abortion.
I didn't even know we had the science to do genetic testing on
Oh yeah, we
fetuses.
do it all, like literally everybody does it. You can either test the maternal blood, that's like a screening test, and it screens for genetic abnormalities. Mm-hmm. But if that screens positive, what you can offer people is a diagnostic test, which is where they sample the amniotic fluid, so the water bag around baby. When people say, oh, my water broke, we can test that water for genetic abnormalities. And that is a diagnostic test. So what happened with my pregnancy, I had genetic screening that came out completely normal. And I thought I had a normal pregnancy. And then at 19 weeks, we had our anatomy scan, and we found that my daughter had no brain structures. The part of her brain that she did have was falling into her spinal cord, which surely that can't be good. She had a hole in her spinal cord. No. Her heart was malformed. She only had one kidney. What else? She had a list of things wrong with her. And so we did the same thing. We tested the amniotic fluid and confirmed that this is bad. But even, regardless of whether her genetic testing came back normal or not, just based off her anatomy, that was not a viable pregnancy. She would have either died in my abdomen, or I would have given birth to her and watched her die, or the scariest one for me is we would have had 6 months together and then she would have died. And all of those 6 months would have been in the neonatal intensive care unit.
One, thank you for sharing that story. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. With the current laws, if you were pregnant and going through that in Texas,
so that is what happened, actually. That happened
okay,
in
so
Texas.
That happened in Texas.
We were not counseled on what we could do because the doctors were afraid that that would be aiding and abetting me getting an abortion with them telling me what to do. So I left the doctor's office with Google. Dr. Google told me the nearest out-of-state clinic I could go to. And I called that clinic and they said, I'm sorry, we're full. And then I called the second closest clinic and they said, I'm sorry, we're full. The third closest clinic in another state said, okay, we can take you tomorrow.
And this is Texas. So doesn't it take like a day to even drive the full length of Texas?
So we had to get on a plane. We had to buy a plane ticket and a hotel immediately and get to another state. And I just had to drop everything I was doing because that's when they could see me and that was their availability.
Do you hear that, people? Do you hear that? This is a traumatic event that's made more traumatic through the current laws in a rebel state. Now, I don't want to talk ill because I know that's your home state, but it's a rebel state. Like, you shouldn't have had to go through that.
And I used to be so proud to be from Texas. I have freaking blue bonnets on my wall because I love Texas. I love my home. I love my family. The people in charge of it piss me off. And
yeah,
I used to be like, oh, I'm from Texas. And people be like, oh, that's so cool. You like the Cowboys? And now I say, oh, I'm from Texas. And people say, oh, I'm so sorry.